very much, Ceann Comhairle. Minister, last June, following the statement issued at the end of the European Council meeting, the Taoiseach and your government colleagues trumpeted him as being a game changer for this country. We were led to believe that the decision to allow for the direct recapitalisation of Spanish banks without placing the burden on the shoulders of the Spanish people had positive benefits for the Irish people, and that the government would be, and that that agreement would be applied to Ireland retrospectively. It was only to be a matter of how much our burden would be lifted, not if it would be lifted. 4 months on, the Taoiseach is back in Brussels. He's been there a number of times since. He recently took a number of his cabinet colleagues, all of them, or almost all of them, to meet with the Commission. But unfortunately, there has been no progress whatsoever on a comprehensive deal on bank debt for Ireland. The lack of action in the intervening period by your government has allowed the momentum that I believe existed to be lost. A dangerous vacuum has developed, and unfortunately that vacuum has been filled by the finance ministers of Germany, the Netherlands and Finland. They have put an entirely different interpretation on the outcome of that June summit to that which was presented by your government. So tough talk at home and silence where it matters has left Ireland without a deal as we face into what is going to be another exceedingly difficult budget. What's needed now is resolute action. So the Taoiseach needs to be heard in Brussels as well as Belmullet, and he needs to be heard in Berlin as well as Ballyhaunis. The Taoiseach is representing Ireland at the negotiating table in Brussels today. So, Minister, can you tell us what it is he's looking for? What exactly is he looking for? In light of the statement of the three finance ministers, is he asking for clarity that, that his understanding of the June summit is correct and that it still stands? Is he asking for a timeline on the conclusion of a deal on Ireland's bank debt? And if so, can he tell us what it is we're looking for in that regard? Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy. Minister.
Thank the Deputy for his question. The Taoiseach is, along with 26 other leaders of the Member States of the European Union, incidentally, he's the only one of the 27 who had his profile on the front cover of the European edition of Time magazine. And
maybe we'll settle down now, please. Maybe we'll settle down. Thank you. Minister, thank you. Please proceed.
You're teaching with the front page for other reasons.
All right, you've had your say. Thanks.
Many of you may laugh, but I can assure you that the other heads of government, some of them of a substantial size, would give their right eye for that kind of recognition.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Can I further say?
Sorry, please.
You wouldn't know which one to speak anyway.
Excuse me. There's a time limit on this. Would you please allow the Minister to respond to Deputy Dáil? Thank you.
Can I further say that the Taoiseach is meeting with the other heads of government from his own political family, the European People's Party, and the Taoiseach is likewise meeting with our political family, the Party of European Socialists. At that meeting, President Hollande from France will be with other socialist leaders, preparing for a political preparation for the Council meeting later today. What will they be doing? My understanding is, and I'm confirming it here to the House, in response to your question, Deputy, is that they will be confirming that the decision that they took on the 29th of June will in fact be upheld, that the details in relation to that decision will be fully explored, that the recognition that was contained in the communiqué of that decision in relation to Ireland will be vindicated and confirmed, and that all of the necessary details surrounding the implementation of that decision will continue to make progress. Now, can I say, Deputy Dooley, in relation to the three finance ministers, those finance ministers, particularly the German, are facing into a period of elections. The three finance ministers made a statement in relation to their interpretation of a particular agreement. The finance ministers were not at the June meeting. They won't be at this meeting today. The heads of government will be. But over the last number of weeks, Minister Noonan and the Taoiseach have been to Berlin, have been to Paris and to other senior capital cities of the larger countries, pressing for Ireland's case and getting recognition of the necessity for the deal agreed in principle at the Council in June would be applied to Ireland.
Thank you, Minister. Deputy Dooley, please.
Thanks, Minister. I'm glad that you brought up the Time magazine issue, because sadly since June the Taoiseach has spent more time on a lap of honour congratulating himself for having Ireland included in the text without making any real effort to work with the leaders of the other countries. And I don't believe he has met a single leader in the intervening period. And I'd much prefer if he had done his tour of the capitals of Europe in an attempt to flesh out that deal than running around the media organisations of the world in the hope that they'd have a spare front page at a dead particular time of the year, and then to try to present it as some major achievement from Ireland. Minister, your government was elected on a promise to burn bondholders and to take the burden of bank debt off the shoulders of the Irish people. You've singularly failed in that regard to date. Look, you know all about that in your own area. You made certain promises in relation to third-level fees and grants,
please.
and sadly third-level students are starting to find out about that right now. So your government, since the June summit, has also sought to add to the confusion surrounding the deal that existed there. You've tried to confuse the whole issue of the promissory notes with the deal that was supposedly achieved in June.
What's your supplementary question, Deputy?
I have a minute to put my supplementary question, Controller, and if you give me an opportunity to do so.
It
simply is this. Are we still, or is your government still looking for a deal on Ireland's bank debt as outlined in June? Outlined by your government? Outlined by your government in June? Or are you just holding out on the hope that that promissory note process, which was underway well before June, will somehow be resolved, like the interest issue was resolved, and then you'll be on another lap of honour? And maybe he'll be on the front page of Vanity Fair the next time. Can you tell us, Minister?
Minister, thank you.
You know, Deputy, if I were you representing today the Fianna Fáil party, I would not refer to the word lap of honour, because this House can long remember the long extended, it was longer than Frank Sinatra's last concert. Bertie Ahern's lap of honour. We had the long lap of honour for Bertie, the long relay handover in slow motion while this economy was going down the tubes. We had
Sorry, you're not at a county council meeting here. Would you please settle down? You ask a question, you're getting an answer.
Deputy,
you mightn't like the answer,
Deputy,
but you're getting one.
You referred to the lap of honour twice. I'm reminding you of how macabre it actually was, all the way to Clara. All the way to Clara. Can I say to you, in relation to your actual pertinent question, that we are continuing to negotiate the stringent components of the Memorandum for Understanding that your government signed off on and which this House supported, and which is attached to the name of the Irish Republic. You claim that we would not be able to negotiate components of that particular Memorandum of Understanding, and we have succeeded in so doing. We will continue to do so. It's not easy. It's difficult. The euro crisis has gone on now for more than 3 years. There are different forces in play. We are trying to convince those forces that it is in everybody's interest that the Irish get the kind of deal that subsequent member states are open to get, because we were the first over the line. And that's why the Taoiseach and the Taoiseach, together with their political families in Europe, family to which neither your party nor the other parties are members of here in this House, and we will get their political support and we will make progress in this Council. As to what extent of the progress, nobody can say. But I know it will be going in the right direction.
Thank you. Deputy MacDonald.
Gurmai gut Ceann Comhairle. Ara, bhí clár tábhacht tuk tíchi cahar a réir. Clár a léirí scanal mór sa cahar seo. I don't know if you saw the documentary last night, Taoiseach, but it lifted the lid on what has to be surely one of the worst ever planning scandals in this city, indeed in the country. The documentary in Uca Ireacht na Cásca has exposed a record of skullduggery and secret dealings between the management of Dublin City Council and developers who wanted to demolish what is now the National Monument on Moore Street and to develop a monstrous shopping mall on O'Connell Street. I want to ask you, Minister, if you are aware that these backstairs deals involved a gross misuse of the compulsory purchase order process to the advantage of one developer, Chartered Land, which at the time was not even the registered owner of the lands in question. I want to know if the government will call for full disclosure from Dublin City Council management about all of these matters, including full texts of the secret agreements. And most importantly, Minister, I want to ask you and your government to now call a halt to this scandalous episode. The development of the site, the vandalism of the site which developers propose to pursue, can't go ahead without the say-so of Minister Jimmy Deenihan. And the Minister has had this matter on his desk for some months now. He can refuse to give the go-ahead to Chartered Land to build on or encroach upon any part of the National Monument, the historic last meeting place of the 1916 leaders in Moore Street. And I want to ask you, in addition to seeking full disclosure from Dublin City Council, to commit this morning here in this Dáil that the development envisaged will cease, that Jimmy Deenihan, the Minister in question, will refuse permission, and that your government and this Dáil will act to preserve, to enhance and to develop the National Monument.
Thank you. Minister.
Deputy MacDonald, this week my colleague Deputy Phil Hogan launched the reform proposals for local government, most dramatic since the formation of local government back in 1898. Some commentators have said that this is a usurpation of the powers and a diminution. One commentator said he had become the undertaker of local government. I refute that. I would suggest to you, I haven't seen the programme, so I can't comment on the detail of it. I would suggest to you that you have your colleagues on the City Council, the Sinn Féin councillors there. They would no doubt share your concerns, and I suspect other people on that council would share similar concerns. I think the place to start in inquiry is for the elected members of Dublin City Council to hold the officials of Dublin City Council to account and to get information. The idea that we would rush in on the basis of a television programme and step over the elected members of Dublin City Council is a denigration of support for local government that I thought your party supported.
Deputy MacDonald.
Well, that's an evasion if ever there was one. I don't accept that the government can simply stand idly by when matters of this nature, of this scandalous nature, come into the public domain. And Minister, you're well aware that issues pertaining to the National Monument have been the subject of widespread debate, including here in this Dáil. I believe that you as government have a responsibility not just to the City of Dublin, but indeed to the entire country, to ensure that the mindless vandalisation of a national monument, of a historic site, is not allowed to proceed. I think it is a matter of concern for government when the kind of shady dealings and very strange goings on in the largest local authority in the state are laid bare, not just in a documentary, but these have been commented on before. So, of course, the City Council has a responsibility in this, but you're in government, you're in charge, and this matter isn't a localised one. The preservation and development of Moore Street, of the adjacent laneways, of that whole area alongside the GPO is a matter of national concern. And you as government have a responsibility to act.
Thank you.
The matter is on Jimmy Deenihan's desk. It's very simple now. He simply has to give the word that the shopping mall development will not go ahead and that your government will undertake to acquire the site and to develop it in an intelligent, thoughtful and appropriate way, which will not just give due regard to the women and men of 1916, but which could prove a huge attraction and resource for the City of Dublin.
I just remind members that when we're referring to members of the government, would you please refer to them as Minister X, Y or Z? Thank you.
Councillor, let me respond. There seems to be two issues here. I didn't see the programme, but you stated in your first question, Deputy, that there were very serious allegations of secret deals, secret agreements, to the benefit of one developer as against another. Perhaps, I'm not sure since I haven't seen the programme. But the thrust of what you said here, if I heard you correctly, was that wrong practices, including secret deals, were undertaken by the city manager or officials acting on his behalf and an individual private developer. If that is the case, the first responsibility to inquire about that is with the local government, is with your councillors and with other parties' councillors, and I think every party here.
Sorry, would you mind, please? Thank you.
I mean, if that's what you want to do, I would suggest you raise that question in the first instance. And I will raise it certainly with our own Labour councillors there in the first instance when I've had a chance to see the programme. However, in relation to the National Monument, I'm well aware of the extent of the monument. I've been taken on a detailed and personal tour that took over a number of hours with James Connolly Heron, the grandson of the founder of the Labour Party, James Connolly. So I'm very well aware of the issues that are involved. I'm also very well aware of the responsibilities that Minister Deenahan has in relation to this matter. But you're trying to link two things together which are not necessarily linked. The allegation of wrongdoing is a serious allegation made in the programme. The first responsibility I think we have as Democrats is at the local level authority who have direct responsibility for the city manager and what he is doing or not doing, to start there. Minister Deenahan will make his decision in due course, and I can assure you that you will be more than happy with that decision.
Thank you. Deputy Pringle.
Thank you, Cancorla. Minister, yesterday you and your party colleagues launched your campaign for a yes vote in the upcoming children's referendum. And I, like everybody else, welcomes this referendum, and I look forward to a day when the children of the state will be given the protection that they deserve, and stories of abuse and neglect from families and state will become a thing of the past. But this week it seems that that day is much further away than it was before. I, like other members, have read with disgust and dismay the findings of Judge Ruairi's report on St Patrick's Institution. Children being stripped with knives, bullied by staff members, and being forcibly moved to isolation cells using head and arm lock control. This is barbaric behaviour, Minister. And it would remind us of the treatment of Abu Ghraib prison in Iraq that we heard so much about over the years, but it's happening on our own doorstep. There are even questions, Minister, for your own responsibility, because basic record keeping in relation to school attendance for young people in St Patrick's was non-existent. This means that those young people's lives will already be restricted. They won't have the chance to improve themselves during their time in that institution, and they'll leave with a distinct disadvantage. All of this, Minister, has been going on right under our noses. I am aware that Minister Shatter has instructed the Director General of the Prison Service to address these issues within the time frame set by the Inspector. But I am very concerned as to whether it was quick enough and how these abuses are only coming to the forefront now. If you and your Labour colleagues truly believe that children should be seen and heard, then you will act on this immediately. Which makes me wonder why it is that Minister Shatter received this report 3.5 months ago, but it has only come into light this week. And why did the Children's Ombudsman's concerns in relation to St Patrick's Institution fall on deaf ears for 2 years? Your party leader has stated that this has to be addressed. But what everyone wants to know, and what I would like to hear, is when and how. The 2014 timeline for ending the detention of under-18s in that prison must be brought forward. Will your government do this? And will your government act for children who want to be seen and heard, but are prevented from doing so in the cruelest possible way?
I want to thank the Deputy for raising this matter, which I think is a concern to everybody in this House. And it's a legacy, I think, that none of us can be proud of. Minister Shatter informed the Cabinet on Tuesday of this matter and the report, and we agreed instantly to his recommendation that it should be published immediately, which he did the following day. His statement is very extensive, Deputy, and it's available to members of this House if you want to get the full chapter and verse in relation to an outrageous scandal and reflection on all elected persons in this House and elsewhere. Some things have already been done. 16-year-olds are now no longer being contained in St Patrick's. And next year, subject to confirmation, but I'm pretty sure that next year some categories of the 17-year-olds will be transferred to the Oberstone campus before mid-2014, when all young people under the age of 18 will be detained on that site. So yes, we are heading to move to get everybody under the age of 18 out of the Mountjoy complex where St. Pat's is located. The other issues that were raised in relation to the way in which the Ombudsman for Children was treated reflect badly on aspects of the Department of Justice and the Prison Service. And I can assure you that both Minister for Children and Youth Affairs and Minister Shatter, the Minister for Justice and Equality, are working closely together to address immediately the issues that you've highlighted.
Thank you. Deputy Premier.
Thank you, Minister. And I think it is vitally important, and I think that time frame for removing under-18s from St. Patrick's should be brought forward, and you should ensure that it happens very, very quickly. Minister, the Judge Ruairi also said that he would revisit the prison again in November to check on the implementation of his report. And I hope to see that when he does, that he will be able to report that the implementation is taking place and happening quickly. But I would also like to ask you, would the government correct the record at the United Nations Human Rights Commission, where the former Secretary General of the Department of Justice said that these complaints were basically the fanciful whims of children and couldn't be listened to? And I think it's vitally important for the reputation of our country and for the respect of human rights that that record will be corrected as well.
Thank you, Deputy Minister.
I can assure the Deputy that all necessary steps required to deal with this issue will be taken. This government of Fine Gael and Labour is the first government to establish a dedicated Department for Children and Youth Affairs under the management and control of Minister Francis Fitzgerald. Minister Shatter has probably introduced more reforms in the area of justice in less than 2 years than any of his predecessors. He has been extremely fearless in confronting interests that perhaps hid behind certain allegations or certain assertions, and he will take whatever steps are necessary to ensure that Ireland is fully compliant with her international obligations in this regard.